So, how do you learn to really trust your ears? Like, really trust them? Well, I'm going to be giving a technique today, and there's several that you could use, but I think the most important technique is to level match when you're making decisions, when you're comparing two or three different bits of audio. So, I want to show you some practical examples today of level matching and just do some critical listening with a microphone that's moving around in various positions around the drum kit. I actually teamed up with my friend Ted Marks, and he's over at my old studio actually. So I moved out, and he wanted to stay. You can find him on Instagram and Facebook at Ted Marks Music. And he's playing a left-handed drum kit. Really great drummer, really nice pocket and groove. So the idea is to ignore the difference in volume. Okay, volume doesn't really matter because we can always adjust the volume. If we have a loud guitar amp, we can just turn down the preamp, right? If we have a loud vocalist, well, we could turn down the preamp. Or if somebody wants to sing at a whisper, we could crank the preamp. So it really doesn't matter the physical volume of what we're recording. It really only matters about the texture. So, with that, we have difference in tone. We have, different saturation, compression, just kind of naturally happening. Instruments sound different at different volumes. So it's not about volume. It's actually about texture and the tone and the timbre. It's about calling out and commanding the differences in tone to communicate and to make a drum part really sing in the song, right? And it's not just a drum part, it could be a guitar part, it could be a bass part. Good players just know how to make their instruments go and sing in the song. And this, I believe, is a big part of it. It's like a drummer who goes to the chorus of a song and it's supposed to be a little bit more open sounding, a little more washy on the cymbals. And they just know to kind of put a little more weight into the back of the sticks. And by doing that, you can cause the cymbals to wash out a little bit more. Then when you go to the verse, you can kind of grab a little bit higher on the sticks. And that's just for the ride cymbal. I mean, maybe they go to the hi-hat, or there's tons of techniques. But the idea is that you're using texture, not volume, to play around with music. And so we can do this. We can use this for judging various mic positions, for example. We can level match, and then we can judge the tone and the texture. We can really see kind of apples for apples, the difference. So yeah, let's check this out. Most of this I've level matched in the quick video edit that I did. And we can, of course, double check it on my system here. I have a VU meter right down here. And then I also have a Duro meter over here. And this is giving peak and RMS. But I mostly look for this meter right here. This is really what I try to aim for, about 0, +1, +2. I have a really good resolution in the meter. There's big spaces, and there's a wide area that the needle can swing and only be a dB difference. That's a great place to kind of set it and level match. Okay, let's check this out. We have a couple different positions. Let's just start with this 414 on the kind of an overhead position on the stand. Okay, cool. So I have my VU meter set to kind of hit at 0 just to make sure that I'm hearing the different examples at the same volume. And, I know what you're thinking. Like, this is drums. It's not really, a VU meter type material. And you're right. The VU meter probably isn't picking up a lot of the peaks. But I am more interested in the perceived volume. It's not about the peaks. It's not about the absolute or technical or inner sample peaks. It's not about that. It's about our perception of the volume and trying to get that perception get it consistent between both examples that we're comparing. Okay? So we have this example here. So you see right there, we know that they're about the same volume, if not very close. It's possible I didn't get it quite right, but we can hear that the difference in snare and the tone of the snare drum when I go off to the side, that's interesting. And there's really no reason for that. I mean, maybe he was playing it a little differently, but there is some huge differences here in the sound of the drums. And it's not volume throwing us off or faking us out. We've level matched, and so then we can kind of take that variable out of the picture, and we actually can focus on the difference of direct sound versus indirect sound, or the difference in compression that's naturally happening in the mic because we have maybe a lot of distance between the source and the mic, or the difference in tone. So again, take the volume out of the picture, level match, and now we can make judgments appropriately. Let's go back again. I want you to listen to the direct versus indirect sound in these examples. We just back it up to the original here. So I don't know if you noticed, but the kick drum is definitely different. The snare is different to a point, but we can really hear the difference in just the sound, okay? It's not about texture. In fact, we've done this later on in this experiment. We took the pad of the mic and we adjusted it, turned it on, turned it off. And I didn't know this, but there is a difference in sound. So this is a classic mic. This mic we're using today is a 414B UOS. It's the last 414 that had the transformer in it. So classic mic. You've seen this in like the overheads for like U2, above the kit. Classic overhead mic. Kind of scoop sounding, but yeah, this is kind of a reference choice for a lot of people. It's just kind of a flat sounding mic in general. Yeah, let's move on here. Let's go to kind of the worst position here, or the some people call it the dick mic, the crotch mic, whatever you want to call it, go for it. But this is actually pretty cool. We can hear some cool differences here. And again, this should be fairly well level matched. I'll keep this camera on so we can see these meters here. Let's have a listen here. Okay, so this second time around, what I've labeled as worst 2, this has a reduction in the volume here. So this is actually with the pad on the microphone. And then this first one is without the pad. And I can hear a difference. Okay, it's subtle. If you don't know to listen for it, you wouldn't know it's there probably. But this is part of critical listening is, you assume that your equipment works a certain way, but does it, You always need to test. Does the pad sound different? And sometimes it does. It definitely can. If you give too much gain, too much signal into an outboard compressor, and then take the threshold and crank it way up so it doesn't over compress, does that sound different than starving the compressor for signal and taking the threshold way down and making it really look for it way down, super low signal? It probably will sound different between the two. So these are kind of the questions that we have to ask. Okay, let's have one more listen here. So this is without the pad. Okay, there is something just more ballsy about the mic when it's wide open. And I did not, I didn't think that this would be the case. I really didn't think there was going to be a difference, but there totally is. It just sounds more wide open. It sounds a little angrier. It sounds just kind of bigger. Okay? I don't know why, but it's very interesting. So now I know because I've level matched and I can listen critically. Now I can trust my ears and I can say, that does sound a little different. Now this leads me to kind of my second point for this video is your first instinct when you hear something is the correct one. So give it a good listen. Give it a solid 20 seconds at least. Maybe loop it if you have to, but allow your ears to kind of really soak it in and kind of adjust to the sound. Okay? Give it a good, some good time, and then switch. Switch to the alternate example that's been level matched ahead of time. And your first reaction usually is the right one. And it's going to tell you a lot. Now you're going to notice usually the top end is different. That's usually what you're going to hear first. But the longer the example that you can kind of burn your ears in for, the more you're going to hear. So if you give it maybe 5 seconds and then you switch, you're going to hear the difference in the top end and be like, oh, cool, this one's more clear. But if you really give it some time and you're, let's say you want to test, different converters or test to see whether an external clock makes a difference on your converters. So you're mixing all day and then you switch it to the external clock and see if you can hear the difference. It's going to be very obvious because you're going to be kind of burned into this tone that you've been hearing all day. And then you switch something and all of a sudden it's going to be like, whoa, I've made my mix according to this lens that I've been hearing all day. And now that viewpoint has changed. So the longer the examples, the better, but it's about instinct here. So your instinct is going to be what you want to pay attention to. So level match and then instinct. Okay, that's huge. If you can learn how to do that, it's really, really big. Okay, let me scoot around this this test here and see if there's anything else worth checking out. So we have overhead. I think I did this same test. Yeah. So overhead and then overhead 2. It's really close. I mean, if it's not dead on with the position, But this is without the pad, and this is with the pad. Okay, let's see if there's a difference. Okay, so it almost seems a little louder. Now, I don't think it's actually louder. I think we have it pretty well level matched, but it almost seems louder. And it could be that it's just uncompressed. It could be that it just, I don't know, it's just slightly more broader in its frequency. But that reminds me of a cool trick you can do is if you want to see if, say, a vocal mic is the real winner, you can make the uh, kind of the one that you want to test. Let's say there's a really expensive vocal mic and you want to test it against the SM7B. Well, you could actually not level match, but you could make the really expensive mic slightly quieter than the SM7B and compare them and see if it still wins. Because I believe that if something is really better, then it could stand up to a little bit of a level mismatch. And that's sometimes what I'll do is I'll say, you know what, if this is really better, it'll still command a presence. It'll still cut through the mix. I don't know, there's going to be something about it that really makes it kind of bigger than life, even though it's quieter. So yeah, that's kind of a cool experiment. Is does it sound huge? Does it sound bigger than life? Does it sound awesome even at a quieter level? You can always just crank the volume and crank up the bass, but that's not really solving anything. That's just covering up what you're trying to hear. Okay, so I'd love to know what you think of this. What do you think of these kind of ideas today? And you can see I'm kind of moved into the studio here. I have kind of some stuff set up. This is in a garage, This is real world, I have an electrical panel right here, and just kind of garage crap, water softener, filter stuff around. So, this is not ideal, but I'm making it work, and I want to kind of talk through in future videos how I kind of overcome these obstacles of just making real world scenarios work. So yeah, this was a fun one. Talk to you soon in the comments.